Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol.com. My guest today is Sidhartha Mallya. He's a model, actor, and son of Vijay Mallya, who took Kingfisher Airlines and UB Spirits to great heights before the troubles with family business began. Welcome, Sidhartha, and congratulations on the wedding. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, just over 2 weeks. So all very new, but very exciting.
Excellent. Tell us about the book. It's actually very interesting that you sort of in the acknowledgements talk about your now wife. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that she's your fiancée and she could be your wife by the time the book comes out. So tell us about the book and tell us about that.
Yeah, I actually completely forgot about that until you brought that up. I must show her that tonight and say, "Oh, now you're my wife." But yeah, it's been a great journey ever since the book came out. I think it's been a couple of months now. Um, and the feedback and everything has been superb. So I'm happy that the books seems like it's been able to resonate with a lot of people and help a lot of people, and hope that can continue.
Excellent. And it's been released in India so far, not in the other
Yeah.
global release hasn't happened yet.
No. I believe the publishers had a plan for it, that it would be launched in India first, and then the US, the UK, down the line. Also, it was actually quite important for me to have it launched in India first and foremost, because when I wrote this book, and even my first book, if I'm honest, I always sort of had India and that region in mind as the main sort of target audience. I think there's plenty of mental health books and that sort of stuff already in the West, not so much in South Asia. So I wanted to write my books predominantly for that audience and to help that audience. And then, if it could translate into other markets, then great. But that was the main goal.
Right. But why a children's book? Do you have some sort of, inclination training in that space?
No, for me it was more about everything is kind of has sort of spiraled as a result of my first book. And in my first book, I spoke about, if I'm honest, I was talking about sort of my own experiences with mental health and the things that I've gone through in my life. And the purpose of that book was to sort of present things in an open and honest way, and to tell people that, like, hey, I've gone through this stuff. This is not a self-help book. This is more just a kind of open admission of my own struggles when it's come to mental health. And if this resonates with you, then great. And if it can help you in any way, shape, or form, then great. And the feedback for that book was really, really positive, and people said that they felt like they could relate to me, and suddenly they felt like there was someone that was sort of going through the same things as they were. And then that got me thinking. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, because I wonder how much of the stuff that I'd gone through might have, I don't want to say be avoided, but how much of it I could have dealt with better had I had a better understanding regarding feelings and emotions and mental health and all that stuff from a younger age. And the sort of conversations I've had with people, I think that the general consensus seems to be that, like, if there was more of a discussion around this stuff when we were younger, we'd be in a better position to deal with it in adulthood. And that's sort of why I was like, okay, well, let me write something for children, because if we can sort of start the conversation around emotions from a younger age, then when they inevitably have to deal with these things in adulthood, it won't be a topic that's completely alien.
So when you say that, some of the stuff that you had to deal with growing up, can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I don't know if you've read, if I'm honest, or if any of your viewers have, but each chapter talks about sort of certain things that I went through. One is living with clinical OCD. It's something that I was diagnosed with, and something I was actually diagnosed with closer to my 30s, but something that I've been dealing with my whole life. But of course, I didn't know it was OCD until it was made apparent to me. So there's a chapter that talks about that. There's a chapter that talks about sort of the mental impact my parents' divorce had on me when I was around 7 years old. And I just talk about going through depression in 2017. These are just experiences that I've had through my life, and things that I wanted to speak about in case there was others out there who've gone through similar things and to help them.
Right. So you've been pretty close to your dad. Was that somewhere at the back of your mind while writing Sad Glad?
Say that again, sorry?
Your relationship with your dad and his rise and fall in terms of the business side of things, was that somewhere at the back of your mind while you were writing Sad Glad?
I mean, I don't really know how those two things sort of correlate to each other. His situation is very much a situation he's going through right now. Sad Glad is a children's book to do with emotions. So, I don't think his current situation really had any bearing on Sad Glad. No.
Did it have a bearing on your state of mind while you were writing or conceptualizing the book?
I don't think it would. I don't think it necessarily had a bearing on my state of mind to do with the book. But it's an ongoing situation that has been going on for a number of years now. So I think it's probably something that's had an impact on my mind, with or without the book. Let's just say. But so while it's been present, it wasn't necessarily the driving factor or really had bearing. Let's just say there was no conscious bearing when writing this book.
Excellent. In the introduction, I introduced you first as a model and then as an actor and then as an author. So where are we at in terms of what is happening in the other spaces? Do we see anything on screen soon?
I mean, I hope so. Yeah. I mean, there was a film I did a couple of years ago. Now it's already 2 years. Wow. Shot in Rome. That should be releasing anytime now. It's long overdue, its release. So hopefully that'll be coming out. And then hopefully there are a couple of other opportunities in the pipeline. So hopefully there'll be more stuff on screen, but I'm sure as you'll appreciate and your viewers will appreciate, it's a long slog, being a part of this industry, and the audition process and all of that sort of stuff. And then there was COVID, there was an actor strike in Los Angeles last year, so things are moving a little bit slower. But yeah, hopefully there will be something sooner rather than later.
Right. You talked about like you mentioned, your mental health struggles and your PTSD and your OCD. If I'm honest, what changed for you in 2015, 16? Like you've mentioned in the book, that seems to be the watershed year in which you sort of came to terms with that you were having mental health problems and that perhaps you needed help.
Mm-hmm. I think what really happened was that I gained an awareness of what I was going through. I think awareness in life is key, right? Because if you're not aware of something, then it's kind of as good as it not existing. But in 2015, I went to drama school. I went and got my master's in acting from the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. And, a lot of the training was how to deal with your emotions and feelings and how to be open and vulnerable, all the things that are required of an actor. And I think that really opened me up emotionally and got me in touch with my feelings. And I was able to then really relate to what I was going through. And realize that, okay, there have been some things that I've been dealing with, and now I'm feeling them on a deeper level, that I've been opened up to them. I can look at them and see where they're coming from, and perhaps deal with them in the best way I can.
Perfect. Sorry, I skipped a question when you
No,
spoke about your film that is coming out soon that you shot in Rome. What can you tell us about it? What is it about?
Oh, it's an action film. It's an action film with there's an actor in it called Tom Welling, who was Clarke Kent in the TV show Smallville. He was playing the young Superman, which for me was really cool because growing up, that was like one of my favorite shows. So being able to sort of spend some time with him and shoot with him and learn from him, that was a really cool experience. But yeah, it's an action film. Set in Italy.
Right. This is your first action film, because Brahman Naman was completely different to
Oh,
this.
completely different. Yeah, I mean, I've done some short films in between and some other things like that, things which you probably won't have known of or see. Those things tend to kind of go under the radar. But yeah, first sort of real action film, completely different to Brahman Naman.
Excellent. To finish where we first started, which is your
Yeah.
wedding, you got married at your family estate in Hertfordshire. What was the experience like? Was it a long time in planning? What can you tell us about that?
I mean, we thought it was a long time in planning, but apparently it was not. So I proposed to my now wife on Halloween, which was October, and then we were back in the UK in December, and we thought about, we she was quite big on a summer wedding, and we decided on the UK. And when we were like, okay, well, what about June? And then there was various things happening in June. So the reason we picked the weekend that we did, the weekend of the 22nd, is because that's what worked. And we were like, yeah, that's great. 6 months is plenty of time. And then when we got into the actual process of it, calling vendors and marquee companies and hotels and even the church, people were almost laughing at us. They were like, 6 months? And we were like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And they were like, people usually sometimes plan these things 2 years out. So we certainly thought it was a long engagement, but perhaps by what's standard nowadays, it wasn't.
Excellent. And were you seeing your dad after a really long time at the wedding?
It had been, yeah, quite a few months. And we'd gone back to the UK. I think I went once. My wife went a couple of times just to sort of, be there for the planning sort of stage. So yeah, it hadn't been too long, but it certainly had been a little bit of time.
Excellent. What do you hope people will take away from your book?
The message of this book and the other book is that more than anything, I want people to acknowledge that it's okay to feel whatever we're feeling. No emotion or feeling is off limits, and that being human, almost not requires, but it by definition means that we are going to feel a range of different emotions and feelings, some that we may like, some that we may not, some which we may have been brought up to believe are good or acceptable, and others which we might have been brought up to believe that we should try to stay away from. But really, being human means feeling all of these emotions and knowing that they're all okay, and that we're fine to feel them all, and that they will come and they will change, sometimes for no reason at all, and that we should accept them all and not try and reject anything.
Perfect. One last thing, I think, mainly because we sort of started on that note
Yeah.
where you said Siddhartha, not Siddharth. Can you tell
Yeah.
me about that? Is that a struggle constantly?
Yeah, it is. And I think that, well, I'll tell you, I think that Siddharth, from my understanding, is probably the more common version. Siddhartha with the A on the end isn't as common. So I think people often just gravitate towards Siddharth because that's what they think it is. But I don't know. I think that we should take pride in our names.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something very quickly on that. Like when I moved to Los Angeles and started, in 2012 to get into the acting business, I registered my name, my professional name, with the Screen Actors Guild as Sid Mallya, because I was like, well, Siddhartha, people are going to see Indian, you don't want to get typecast, and then suddenly, you're being sent for all the roles that are playing taxi drivers and accountants and the stereotypical stuff. So I sort of shied away from my name. And then about 3 years ago, I was like, no, hang on a second. I am who I am. This is my name. And Siddhartha is a very powerful name. It has a lot of connotations spiritually associated with it. And I was like, this is my name. This is who I'm going to be. And this is what I'm going to go by. So 3 years ago, I actually changed it. I re-registered with the guild I didn't re-register. I just changed my registration to Sidhartha, and it's something that I'm actively, trying to own more, I guess, because I think that our names are who we are, and it's important to take pride in that.
Perfect. Best of luck with the book, and congratulations once again on the wedding. And thank you so much for
Yeah.
talking to us.
No, thanks so much,
Thank
and
you.
thanks for having me.